The two-state solution is in peril. Catastrophic conflict in Gaza and a shocking deterioration in the West Bank. This is an affront to the rights of Palestinians, but it is also against the interests of Israelis, against their long-term security and their democracy.
The United Kingdom government could unilaterally recognise Palestine. The United Kingdom government could show the world a lead. And above all, the government could, as an absolute priority, negotiate the delivery of food and water and medicine to women and children who in Palestine are starving, through the route from Larnaca direct into Gaza. I asked him last week, I'll ask him again, when is the government going to do something?
Well, this happened on a day when Gaza health officials say more than 30 people were killed by Israeli fire while thousands approached an aid distribution site run by a controversial humanitarian group. And 3 paramedics were killed by an airstrike while working to save others. A warning that this report from our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle contains images of injured people you may find distressing.
This is the road in central Gaza that Palestinians trek every morning in the hope of getting some aid. Thousands and thousands desperate for food. But once again, it became a death zone. Dozens were killed and more than 100 wounded, according to the health ministry in Gaza, when Israeli forces opened fire. Wherever the camera turns, more wounded are being carried away from the scene. The IDF said that warning shots were fired at suspects who posed a threat to Israeli troops, and they disputed the number of casualties.
We want to live, we want to eat, we have children and wives, we want to live in our homes. 3 years of war, bodies ripped apart, all this for some flour.
Today, the British government announced action against 2 senior Israeli ministers, Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, in response to the ongoing war in Gaza and the expansion of settlements in the occupied West Bank.
We have been absolutely clear. This has to stop, and we stand for a two-state solution. And the settler violence that we've seen in the West Bank particularly is entirely unacceptable and must stop.
Both Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich brushed off the sanctions and said they wouldn't change anything.
Britain has already tried once to prevent us from settling the cradle of our homeland, and we will not allow them to do so again. We are determined, with God's help, to continue and to build.
On Monday night, 3 paramedics were killed as they went to rescue people from the scene of an airstrike east of Gaza City. A second airstrike then hit them as they worked to find the injured. Their bodies could only be recovered this morning because of the ongoing fighting. They were retrieved by their own colleagues.
They killed humanity, killed truth. They killed those who respond to emergency calls, who stand with our Palestinian people. We know very well that with every mission, we may have to say goodbye to those closest to our hearts.
Wael al-Atta was said to be a kind-hearted man who once went to treat a wounded person, only to then find out it was his own brother. Hassan Mohaisin went to the scene of a strike only to discover the targeted house was his family's. His brother Jihad Mohsen and several family members were all killed. And Barah Afana supported his elderly father during this war. A journalist, Moaman Abu al-Awuf, was also killed. He had spent time documenting the work of the paramedics during the war. A few weeks ago, he filmed these pictures of Hassan rescuing a young girl from a fire following an Israeli strike. They went viral around the world. The Israeli military operation in Gaza continues to push forward in almost all areas of the Strip now. International pressure might be increasing on Israel. But for now, it is not deterring them. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Let's go to Austria now, and what its Chancellor Christian Stocker is calling a dark day in the country's history. A gunman has gone on a shooting rampage at a school that he once attended, leaving 10 people dead and then killing himself. It happened this morning in Graz, which is Austria's second largest city. The 21-year-old went into the school with 2 guns, launching an attack that has left police still searching for a motive. Our correspondent, Rachel Venables, is in Graz and has this report.
The gunman arrived just after 10 in the morning, a former student, moving between his former classrooms, firing at pupils as he went. The gunshots ringing out in this quiet community.
The first shot, I was at home. I think, no, it's a little bit child. They play with guns or so, you know. And then I hear 1, 2, 3, 4. It was for me a shock. And then I wait with a bit. I wait, and then I see the police, and then I understand. Okay, it's a big situation.
Hundreds of paramedics, police and special forces raced to the school. Helicopters scanned the area, while officers helped rush survivors to safety as parents fought to find their children, praying they were safe.
My son called me today to say that he's in school and being shot at and that he thinks he's going to die. I've now just found out 2 hours later that he's still alive. I want to go and see him. I've tried asking 3 people whether they'll lend me their bicycle to go and see him. They didn't let me. That breaks me.
Police in Graz, Austria's second largest city, say they brought the situation under control within minutes. The dead and injured, though, include students and adults, girls and boys. Investigators say the attackers thought to have taken his own life in a bathroom at the school.
The perpetrator was a 21-year-old person from the Graz area. As far as we know, only 2 guns were used, and we found them at the scene. They're being inspected, and the perpetrators seem to have been allowed to have these weapons. Further investigations need to be done.
With light falling, locals have begun turning up here to pay tribute at the entrance of this high school, leaving flowers and lighting candles. These streets are unnervingly quiet, a palpable sense in the air of grief and loss, real shock being felt by everybody. Austria has one of the highest gun ownership rates in Europe, but mass shootings until today have been exceedingly rare. It's the kind of attack we're used to seeing in America, not Austria, and it's the country's deadliest since the Second World War. The country's leader spoke for the nation when he expressed his deep shock at what had happened.
This event hits us all as people, as parents, as a society altogether. The school is more than just a place of learning. It is a space of trust, of being at home there, and a space for the future. That this safe space was hit by such a violent act makes us speechless.
Austria will now observe 3 days of mourning as the families here begin a lifetime of grief.
And we can go live now to Rachel. Rachel, I know there's a vigil going on right now and still no indication of a motive.
No, still no sign from the authorities as to their investigation into how this could have happened. We're still waiting for more details, in fact, off this 21-year-old former pupil, as we understand it, off this school, who this morning seems to have picked up 2 weapons that he legally owned, and brought them into the classrooms, walking from former classroom to former classroom of his, going along the corridors and opening fire with such tragic repercussions. We know that 10 people at least have lost their lives. In a previous press conference we heard that was 6 female, 3 males, and since then we were told an adult had passed away, with at least 1 other adult fighting for their life in a hospital nearby and others still having been injured. We know from the authorities that they have been to the suspected shooter's home address, and they found what's been described, certainly in the local press, as a farewell letter, but no more detail at all as to what could have led to such a horrific tragedy and sense here this morning. We know that, of course, pupils arrived here today for a normal day of school. They walked past these gates going into lessons, and it was just after 10 o'clock that the gunshots started ringing out, and that pandemonium and panic and fear set in, with parents rushing to the scene with huge numbers, hundreds of police officers and special forces, as well as those paramedics. As you can see behind me now, a vigil has begun, really, or certainly a tribute. You can see the candles, some of them small tea lights, others larger candles, flowers as well, which have been laid here over the past few hours. We've seen really young children, in fact, in the past few minutes coming to light some candles and pay their respects, as well as people really of all ages, just unified in their sense of shock and grief, trying to come to terms with such an horrific tragedy, as of course the authorities try to understand what happened. Of course, we understand there is believed to be no wider risk to the public, with the suspected shooter understood to have taken his life in the school here in a bathroom earlier today. But of course, for now and in the days ahead, grief will come. It's here already, as will that investigation, and no doubt a wider conversation here around gun ownership and gun laws.
Rachel Venables with the latest there from Austria at the scene of that shooting. Rachel, thank you. Having deployed thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to Los Angeles, Donald Trump is tonight visiting America's biggest military base. The optics are clear as the president defends his decision to intervene in protests against the wishes of California's governor, who says it has only made things worse. And the president has a warning for anyone considering protesting at a Washington military parade, which coincides with his birthday this weekend. Our U.S. correspondent Martha Kellner reports now from Los Angeles.
Holding vigil outside government buildings, the troops Donald Trump says are saving this city. He's doubled the number of National Guard here, and now Marines on their way too, despite violence being less widespread than over the weekend.
There were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. If we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning.
There's no convincing evidence that protesters here are being paid. There are organised antagonists among them, though. Others just opportunistic. Overnight scenes of looting across LA's downtown. The vast majority of these protests have been peaceful. And it was the Los Angeles Police Department dispersing them.
This is one of the main government buildings in downtown LA. Earlier on, it was being guarded by police and sheriff's deputies. Then the National Guard moved in, and the real anger is being directed towards them.
Los Angeles is on edge. This part of downtown in the grips of a military operation, the centre of a political standoff. California Governor Gavin Newsom posted these pictures of soldiers sent here now sleeping on the floor, calling them pawns in Trump's political game playing. The LA mayor agrees.
We didn't need the National Guard. Why on earth? What are they going to do? Do you know what the National Guard is doing now? They are guarding 2 buildings. So they need Marines on top of it? I don't understand that. That's why I feel like we are part of an experiment.
In some pockets, police outnumbered the public.
Crowd control explosions are being deployed from the rooftops of the federal buildings surrounding this plaza, a bid by law enforcement to disperse some of the protesters here.
Many of those gathering are first and second generation immigrants. They're furious about raids that took place in LA last week. Dozens of immigrants were rounded up in the garment district, an area packed with clothing wholesalers. Brianna's dad was among them. He'd lived here illegally for over 10 years.
My father got deported 2 days ago. Unfortunately, he wasn't here to celebrate my birthday. So I'm here protesting for him and 2 of my uncles that were deported. So I stand here today for my family to get free and get freedom for everyone else who was affected.
Everyone says LA is an immigrant city, and it is. You go to Chinese restaurants, they have Hispanic workers in the back. You know, you go to the clothing companies, they have Hispanics working. Like, this is our city, and we have to stand here and defend it.
As dusk fell, the crowds thinned. Demonstrators backed into a corner of downtown LA known as Little Tokyo. A city known for its sporting prowess, for multiculturalism and a long history of resistance movements. This is now one of them. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Los Angeles.
And our U.S. correspondent Mark Stone joins us now from Washington. And Mark, we're about to hear from the president. He's going to be speaking at America's largest military base. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say, considering what we've seen happen in Los Angeles over the past few days.
Yeah, I think he will present himself as the law and order president, as the president who projects peace through strength, whether that be domestically or abroad, and as the president who is fulfilling a mandate which he believes he got with his victory last November to sort out immigration. If you wrap all those three things together, he believes he's got the American public on his side, and the, as he would put it, the wokey liberal leadership in LA are way off track in terms of public opinion. I think it is also the case that, you know, as Martha demonstrated in her reporting there, there is no necessity for the National Guard. There is no necessity for the Marines who are now on their way. They are there only to guard the specific facilities, the immigration facilities, where where people who've been rounded up are being held. They haven't, the Army, the National Guard, have not had any clashes with the protesters. But from President Trump's perspective, it looks, he hopes, like strength, that he is using his presidential power, extraordinary power and very unprecedented as it is, to send in the National Guard and to do it against the orders, or against the wishes, I should say, of the Democratic mayor of the city and the Democratic governor of the state. So the optics from the president's perspective are good. He likes it. It suits him, and it suits his supporters as well. He is at Fort Bragg at the moment. Let's have a look at the scenes there. It is one of the largest military facilities in the world, and that there is Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary. Let's listen in to Pete Hegseth for a few minutes.
Have the best equipment in your hands to stare down the enemy, from multi-billion-dollar platforms to the best rifles, to the best equipment, to hypersonics and drones and fighters and jets, ships and carriers. Everything you need, President Trump will make sure you have. We're rebuilding the military after 4 years of deferred maintenance. And finally, we're reestablishing deterrence. Our allies know that we stand with them, and our adversaries know what we are capable of doing to them, so that we can maintain peace through strength. President Trump seeks peace. He wants peace. So do I. So do you. For our families, for our kids and our grandkids. But those who long for peace must prepare for war. And that's something the 82nd Airborne, America's 911, does every single day. So it's an absolute honor to be your 29th Secretary of Defense. You have my pledge that every single day our focus is on you and your mission and having your back. And you're about 1 minute away from hearing from your Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump. God bless you and God bless our nation.
Wrong, but I think 2 or 3 years ago.
We are going to hear from the US President in about a minute, according to the Defense Secretary. Fort Bragg, of course, has been a base that is at kind of at the centre of a cultural tug of war over the past few years. Under the Biden administration, it was renamed Fort Liberty because Fort Bragg was the name of a Confederate general, and so the Biden administration decided to change its name to Fort Liberty. It was then changed back under Donald Trump to Fort Bragg, named, he said, not after the Confederate general, but after a paratrooper who was a paratrooper who fought in World War II. This event, incidentally, is to mark the 250th birthday of the United States Army, which takes place a few years before a few days, I should say, before the birthday of the country itself. The army formed before the country, the army that took, who created independence, and then the independence was proclaimed a year later. But let's hear now from the President of the United States at Fort Bragg in North Carolina.
And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit.
The soundtrack of his presidency, effectively. We hear it everywhere he goes. He has replaced his red MAGA hat with, I can't quite see, I think it is a baseball cap of the 82nd Airborne Division, who the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth referenced a few moments ago. As I said, this is to mark the birthday of the US Army, which is older than the United States itself. The Continental Army established in 1775, more than a year before the Declaration of Independence, which is in July 1776. But this is, as we have been saying, a kind of split-screen moment. We have the army, the military in their fatigues on the streets of Los Angeles, a cameo maybe in political theatre, but here in camo, they are the backdrop to the presidential speech. We will see more of this at the weekend because he will be here in DC with the first ever mass military parade that will take place in Washington, DC, with tanks, armored vehicles, other military vehicles, helicopters, jets, all flying over the city, driving down the wide streets, Pennsylvania Avenue, here on Saturday. But this is the beginning of that sort of few days of celebrating the military. Let's hear from the President.
That's a beautiful sight, and it's a beautiful sight to be with you in a place called Fort Bragg. Can you believe they changed that name in the last administration for a little bit? But we'll forget all about that. Well, we're going to forget all about it. I want to just say God bless the U.S. Army and God bless the USA. Great place, great group. I want to thank so many incredible soldiers and paratroopers, pilots, warriors for that awesome display of pure, unrivaled American military might. I just saw something that was crazy. You don't want to mess. I've been saying a long time, we have the best. Nobody even comes close, but they just gave me a display that you might be lucky not to see it because it's a little scary. It was beautiful to watch. Let's hear it for the Army Special Operations and Command and the 82nd Airborne Division and the 18th Airborne Corps. What a show it was and what a show it continues to be. And Saturday is going to be a big day in Washington, D.C. You know, a lot of people said, we don't want to do that. I say, yeah, we do. We want to show off a little bit. You know, recently, other countries celebrated the victory of World War I. France was celebrating, really. They were all celebrating. The only one that doesn't celebrate is the USA, and we're the ones that won the war. Without us, you'd all be speaking German right now. Maybe a little Japanese thrown in. But we won the war. And we don't celebrate, but we're going to celebrate on Saturday, and we're going to celebrate from now on. We're going to celebrate our greatness and our achievements. This week we honor 250 years of valor and glory and triumph by the greatest fighting force ever to walk the face of the earth, the United States Army. For 2.5 centuries, our soldiers have marched into the raging fires of battle and obliterated America's enemies. There's never been anything like it. There's never been a force like this. And I rebuilt it. I gave you so much money for 4 years. It was crazy. And we just approved our largest budget for military operations, over $1 trillion. We've never even come close. But our army has smashed foreign empires, humbled kings, toppled tyrants, and hunted terrorist savages through the very gates of hell. Our soldiers do not rest until they win. You know that better than anybody. From June 1775 to June 2025, those foolish enough to challenge America's army have been met with unyielding strength, unbreakable spirit, and unstoppable, overwhelming force. Time and again, our enemies have learned that if you dare to threaten the American people, American soldier will chase you down, crush you, and cast you into oblivion. That's what happens, unfortunately. That's what happens. Doesn't sound very nice, but it's true, isn't it? The last sound you ever hear will be the chilling howl of Black Hawks in the dead of night, the thunderous boom of artillery fire, or the ferocious roar of a U.S. Army infantry brigade charging over the horizon. That brigade is going to charge like you've never seen before, and hopefully I can keep you out of that, but if I don't, you're ready. Is that right? If I can keep you out of it. If I keep you out of it, that's okay, but if we need it, you're ready. You know, it's called peace through strength, isn't it? Peace through strength. For our adversaries, there's no greater fear than the United States Army. They all fear us, and we have the greatest force anywhere on earth. You know, you read different stories that others are building and building and building. We have a force like no other. They said it would take 5 years to defeat ISIS. We did it in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. We let them go. Unlike other of your leaders, I let them go, and we had General Raisin Kane, who's now the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, because I liked him. He was a warrior. He was a great warrior, and now he's been rewarded for his incredible work. But they said it would take 5 years, and we did it in 4 weeks. Someday I'm going to ask him to explain that one to me. But it was the television generals that said that. The real generals got out and fought, and nobody fought like them ever. But for the American people, there's no greater pride, because you are the righteous sword of American justice and the ultimate shield of American freedom. This week we remember that we only have a country because we first had an army. The army was first. In fact, the army was even before the country. You know that, right? 1 year before the country. After 250 years, we still proudly declare that we are free because you are strong. You are so strong. We're safe because you are brave, and America's flag will never fall because America's army will never, ever fail. Never going to fail. Every branch of the armed forces has played a critical role in protecting our nation, but no one has done more fighting, bleeding, and winning than the U.S. Army. Nobody's done that. The Army has earned more combat medals and more battle ribbons than any other service, and 70% of all of the medals of honor. We give away medals of honor all the time at the White House to incredibly brave people, but you have 70% of them. Army soldiers, and especially our Army paratroopers, truly go all the way. You know that expression, all the way. It's one of your beautiful expressions. As President of the United States, let me express my undying gratitude to our nation for every soldier here today, for every veteran and their families, those incredible families that are with us and all across America, and for every patriot who has worn the uniform over 250 years. Can you imagine that? We thank you from the absolute bottom of our hearts. Few places loom larger in Army lore than where we are gathered today. The one and only Fort Bragg, the one and only Fort Bragg. But remember, it was only that little brief moment that it wasn't called Fort Bragg. It was by the Biden administration, not Trump. I had nothing to do with it. We got it changed. We said, you know, I came here numerous times and everybody, they kept saying Fort Bragg, Fort Bragg. I said, you know, it's not the name, but then I was making a speech. I said, what do you think I should call this place? Call it Fort Bragg. I said, Fort Bragg, how you doing? We won a lot of battles from this place, and that's the way it is. It wasn't even close. When Pete and some of the generals came to see me, I said, not even close, not even close. This is the home of the Green Berets, the Sky Dragons, and the all-American 82nd Airborne. We know what 82nd Airborne Division. This is where the GIs who won the Second World War learned to pack their parachutes and push howitzers and go right into those C-47s with lots of arms and push them right out those big, beautiful doors and wield their bayonets and pry the enemy from the hedgerows of the French countryside. France needed us badly. We were there. A lot of people needed us badly. They still do, maybe worse than ever. It was here in this soil that the Army forged the medal that held strong at Bastogne. It was here the mighty paratroopers earned their wings before they rained down death from above to liberate Sicily, Normandy, and even the Netherlands. That's right. We saved the Netherlands. Every inch of this base is steeped in the legacy of those warriors who have said with pride, "Sir, I trained at Fort Bragg, sir." That was pretty cool. And that is why we restored the historic name of this very, very special place. I don't know if it could be the same place. Fort Bragg is in, that's the name, and Fort Bragg, it shall always remain. That's never going to be happening again. And for a little news for the fake news back there, the fake news, ladies and gentlemen, look at them all. Oh, yeah, what I have to put up with. Fake news. What I have to put up with. But they're all right. They've been very nice today. They were impressed with that display, I can tell you that. I think it took them a little by surprise. But for a little breaking news, we are also going to be restoring the names to Fort Pickett, Fort Hood, Fort Gordon, Fort Rucker, Fort Polk, Fort A.P. Hill, and Fort Robert E. Lee. We won a lot of battles out of those forts. It's no time to change. And I'm superstitious. You know, I like to keep it going, right? I'm very superstitious. We want to keep it going. So that's a big story. We just announced that today to you for the first time. They said, why didn't you wait till Saturday? I said, I can't wait. I got to talk to my friends here today. This is a record crowd. You know, you never had a crowd this big. That's an honor. You think this crowd would have showed up for Biden? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to thank so many great leaders here today, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who's been great. By the way, Pete, thank you. Great. And he went through the wars, you know? Pete went through the wars. He had to get through a very hostile group of people that I think really don't want to see America be great again, maybe, or something. But he persevered, and he got there, and he's doing a fantastic job. Great job, Pete. Thank you very much. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins, a fantastic man. Thank you, Doug. You're doing a great job. Doing a great, great job. Way, way up from the last administration, Veterans Administration. It's way up. You saw the recent poll. The people are happy. They weren't happy a couple of years ago. They were really happy 5 years ago. But it went downhill from there. We did so much. We got you medical. If you had to wait, if you had to delay at all, you go out to see a private doctor. We pay the bill. You take care of it. You don't wait for 6 months and end up getting very sick on something that could have been done with a little shot or a pill. We did that. Then they wanted to drop that. I said, we're not dropping it. But, Doug, I'm proud of you. I just heard some great things. Thank you very much. The Secretary of the Army, a really brilliant young guy, went to Yale. Can't have everything. Top student. Dan Driscoll. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. And we have your senators, Senator Ted Budd and Senator Tom Tillis. Thank you, fellas. Thank you. Congressman Richard Hudson, Pat Harrigan. Where's Pat? Pat? Good, Pat. You're doing great. You guys are amazing. And we have the big brass, General Andrew Pappas. General, thank you. Thank you, General. Doing a great job. General John Braja. John, thank you. Great job. Thank you for today, John. General Greg Anderson. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer. And before going further, I want to say a few words about the situation in Los Angeles, California. Have you heard of the place? Where I've deployed thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to protect federal law enforcement from the attacks of a vicious and violent mob. And some of the radical left, they say, oh, that's not nice. Well, if we didn't do it, there wouldn't be a Los Angeles. It'd be burning today, just like their houses were burning a number of months ago. Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen. What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags with the aim of continuing a foreign invasion of our country. We're not going to let that happen. Remember, millions of people were allowed to come into our country totally unchecked and unvetted by stupid people or radical left people or sick people. But regardless, open border policy, the dumbest policy yet. I would say even dumber than men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone. Even dumber than that. They're hurling bricks and cinder blocks at law enforcement. Did you see they're breaking up the sidewalks and the curbs, breaking it up with big, strong hammers? These guys are professionals. These are not amateurs. They're breaking it up because they took the bricks away from them. They came in with bricks, red bricks, that they could throw at our military and at the police in LA, who are very good, but they weren't aggressive like our soldiers. Our soldiers really were aggressive, but they all worked together. But they came in with bricks they were taken away, and they had hammers. Oh, wow, how did that happen? And they're pounding the sidewalk. I said, what the hell is he doing? And he's breaking it up and making it into concrete bombs in a way, and they're dropping them on our military. They're throwing them at our military. Pretty good arms they had, too. Hits guys right in the face. Big chunk of concrete, worse than a brick. They're taking them up to the bridges, and they're dropping them in the cars that are going by. These are animals. But they proudly carry the flags of other countries, but they don't carry the American flag. They only burn it. Did you see a lot of the flags being burned? They weren't being burned by people from our country or from people that love our country. People that burn the American flag should go to jail for 1 year. That's what they should be doing. 1 year. And we'll see if we can get that done. We're going to try and get that done. We're working with some of your senators. I know Senator Josh Hawley is very much involved. And I know the two senators from here. I think you guys, are you guys in favor of it? Boy, would this be a bad time for them to say no. I got you. I got those 2 votes. The agitators are throwing firebombs, Molotov cocktails, lighting vehicles ablaze. You saw all the cars that were burning, mobbing police officers and ICE officers who are the toughest people you'll ever meet, and they love our country, and they're getting really they want to stomp on them, but they're too tough. They don't allow it. And attempting to infiltrate and occupy federal buildings wearing armor and face shields. The best money can buy, somebody's financing it. We're going to find out through Pam Bondi and Department of Justice who it is. They're already on it. Who's financing all this equipment? Very professional. Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy, and that's what they are. A lot of those people were let in here by the Biden administration. They just poured right in. They came from prisons, they came from jails from all over the world. They came from mental institutions. They were the leaders of gangs. They were drug lords allowed to come into our country. Their countries threw them out. Their countries would bus them or drive them right to our border and say, go in there, you ever come back, we're going to kill you. And we got them, and we're getting them out of here. I want to applaud the courage and the strength of the incredible troops who are right now standing guard to protect federal property and personnel and uphold the supremacy of federal law. That's what they're doing. They're protecting our ICE agents. They're protecting the police in Los Angeles. The head of the police in Los Angeles, a good man, I hear a good man, but he was actually saying we really did need this help. It had gotten away from them. It had long gotten away. And we gave it to them. Not only are these service members defending the honest citizens of California, they're also defending our republic itself. And they are heroes. They're in there, they're heroes. They're fighting for us. They're stopping an invasion just like you'd stop an invasion. The big difference is most of the time when you stop an invasion, they're wearing a uniform. In many ways, it's tougher when they're not wearing a uniform because you don't know exactly who they are. In Los Angeles, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're incompetent, and they paid troublemakers, agitators, and insurrectionists. They're engaged in this willful attempt to nullify federal law and aid the occupation of the city by criminal invaders. That's what it is. They're invaders, no different. Their position is that the rioting will not stop unless ICE withdraws from Los Angeles and ceases the enforcement of federal immigration law. In other words, they came in here illegally. Many of them came out of prisons and jails, the most heinous people. They came from all over the world. They came from the Congo in Africa. They came from Asia. They came from the prisons of these places. They were put into the United States and allowed to stay here because we had a grossly, grossly unfit president who listened to whoever was operating the auto pen. And they allowed these people to stay. And by the way, I've known this guy for a long time. He was never the sharpest bulb. But you know what he was? He wasn't a radical left lunatic. He never dreamt about open borders. He never said that when he was of sound mind, which actually was a very long time ago. So sad what they've done to our country. I will say that without question, however, you're seeing the financial numbers. We've now got the hottest country anywhere in the world. And 6 months ago, it was the coldest country. We're being laughed at all over the world. I was in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. We brought back $5.1 trillion into our country. And all three leaders, they're great leaders, all three said, you know, you are presiding over the hottest country anywhere in the world. And they said the exact same thing. They said 6 months ago, it was the coldest country. I'll tell you, it changed on a date. You know what November 5th was? It was the election of a president that loves you. And that's when it all changed. That's when it all changed. Within the span of a few decades, Los Angeles has gone from being one of the cleanest, safest, and most beautiful cities on earth to being a trash heap with entire neighborhoods under the control of transnational gangs and criminal networks. It's horrible what's happened so quickly. As the entire world can now see, uncontrolled migration leads to chaos, dysfunction, and disorder. And you know what? They have it in Europe, too. It's happening in many of the countries of Europe. They don't like it when I say it, but I'll say it loudly and clearly. They better do something before it's too late. Very simply, we will liberate Los Angeles and make it free, clean, and safe again. It's happening very quickly. The one big, beautiful bill, you've heard about it. We call it the one big, I was on one of the television shows, I think Deface the Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Deface the Nation. It's actually called Face the Nation for those of you that are smart enough not to know, because you're better off not knowing. But I was on one of the shows, and I said, we got to get a great bill. They said, would you like it to be one bill, or would you like it to be 7 or 8 bills? They said, I want one big, beautiful bill. And the Republican Party liked that statement. They call it one big, beautiful bill, so that's good. And that's what it is. It's great. And it's currently before Congress. It provides all necessary funding for ICE, for Border Patrol, and for the Department of Defense. And I told you at a level that we've never had before, over $1 trillion. We better get that bill approved. Otherwise, your helicopters and your planes and your equipment's going to start to look a little bit old, General. You better push your favorite congressman. You better push these 2 senators. I think they're in good shape, however. But we got to get it approved. And those congressmen by you are all 100%. I don't even have to talk to them. They've been so great. So I want to sign this into law immediately. And with the signing, so many great things will happen to our country. No tax on tips. Think of that. No tax, seniors, on Social Security. No tax on overtime. They're going to pay for themselves. And if you get a car, and if you borrow money to buy the car, we're going to let you deduct the interest payment if it's a new car made in America. Only if it's made in America. If it's made in Japan or China or any place else, we're not really interested in your deduction. I was elected winning all 7 swing states, the popular vote by millions and millions of votes, in all counties throughout America by 2,750 to 525. That's what I call a big number. But this is a mandate from the people to restore the sovereign borders of the United States, and that is exactly what we're doing. Not only the borders, the financial institutions, and our country itself. We will not be deterred. And the mob in Los Angeles or anyone else, anywhere else, will not succeed. They don't even have a little chance. And I will be calling you early as I see this happening because, in theory, I guess you could say a governor could call, but they don't call. They let their city burn, like in Minneapolis with this guy who ran for vice president against J.D. That was a good debate, J.D. against this guy. Remember how bad he was? That was I said, J.D., there's never been a man like you're competing against. This is the worst. I think he's running for president, too. Can you believe it? But he's a radical left lunatic. And I'll never forget, in Minnesota, that city was burning down. Minneapolis was burning down. It was going to burn to the ground, and he wouldn't call the guard. And I waited for a long time, and I called the Guard, and I saved it, but I wish I would have called it the first day. And I said, you know, if this ever happens again, because I was thinking about running because the election was rigged and stolen, we all know it. I said, we're going to run again, and if I win, which I hope, remember, we're going to make it too big to rig. But we did. We won by millions and millions of votes. So beautiful to watch. That was such a beautiful, 9:02 in the evening. They said, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is projected to be the winner. I said, well, you think that was easy? I don't think these ladies from North Carolina think it was easy. You know, they followed me. I don't know what happened to their husbands. They're married to very nice people. But they've been to, 138 rallies. They said more. And they're from North Carolina. It's nice that we have one nearby finally, right? They go all over the country. I don't know what the hell's going on, but they're great. They're North Carolina, beautiful, wonderful woman, and we appreciate it. Like 130 rallies or some crazy number. Are your husbands satisfied with that? Are they okay? Oh, here he is. He showed up. One of them showed up. That's great. Congratulations. Great women, actually. The great patriots. We will use every asset at our disposal to quell the violence and restore law and order right away. We're not going to wait 7 days and 8 days and wait for a governor that's never going to call and watch cities burn. And let me tell you, if we didn't do this, Los Angeles would burn. It would be burning to the ground right now, just like their houses burned to the ground just a few months ago. And the only flag that will wave triumphant over the streets of Los Angeles is the American flag. So help me God. The American flag is the one that's going to wave triumphantly over the streets. And now let's get back to the true reason we're here today, celebrating 250 years of unbreakable Army courage. This week we commemorate not just the starting point in Army history, but a turning point in the history of the world. That's how important it is. When the Continental Congress created the Army and appointed its first commander, named happened to be George Washington. Has anybody heard of him? George Washington. Are you okay, darling? Are you all right? Yeah, take your time, please. Doctor, please. Doctor. Doctor in the house. Thank you. Thank you very much. These are great people. They've been waiting here a long time, General, so, you know, we want to give them all the time they need, right? Thank you very much. Greatest people in the world. They are amazing. Amazing. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, honey, thank you. Beautiful young person. Beautiful young person. We have a lot of young people, you know, they have, we won young people, old people, and everything in between. It's sort of nice. Remember they used to say, but Trump doesn't have the young people. We won everything. Thank you very much, Doctor. Great job. When the Continental Congress created the Army and appointed its first commander, General George Washington, they sent the fierce spirit of a free nation into battle under a rallying cry that echoes to this day. Give me liberty or give me death. Have you heard of it? Quite a beautiful statement. Think of what that means. Give me liberty or give me death. I know exactly what that means. Just 3 days after the birth of the Army, the great patriot, founding father, Dr. Joseph Warren, was on the front lines as a soldier stood.
And we'll be listening to the U.S. President speak at the military base of Fort Bragg, mentioning his deployment of the National Guard and Marines to Los Angeles, saying L.A. would be burning if he hadn't deployed. And he talked about liberating Los Angeles. We'll have the latest from L.A. and the rest of all of the day's other news in News at 10, coming up after the break. Stay with us.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right, i.e. fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.